Hey guys, it's Miss Briscoe here with today's math lesson. So today we're going to be learning about the distance, rate, and time formula to solve distance, rate, and time problems. So our learning goal is I can solve problems involving distance, rate, and time. So when you're dealing with distance, rate, and time, there's a formula. And so this formula would be very, very important for you to write down or highlight. The formula is distance equals rate times time. So D is distance equals rate times time to solve problems. Now, this is a multiplication formula, but it's where you want to use your properties. And so you want to use inverse operations. So if we're missing something in a multiplication problem, we can use division to find it and vice versa. So we're going to be using some of our properties while we're trying to solve some of these problems. So let's walk through and see how the distance, rate, and time formula works. So let's read our first example. It says the winner of an automobile race drove 50 miles at an average speed of 150 miles per hour. How long did it take the winner to finish? Well, 50 miles, that is your distance, okay? That's how far you went. Your rate is how long it takes you to go a certain distance. So rate is, how long does it usually take for you to get there? So 150 miles per hour is your rate. It's kind of like your speed. So you're doing 150 miles per hour. How long did it take? So how long means that we are trying to find the time. So we can go ahead and plug this into our distance, rate, and time formula. So our formula is D equals R times T. So my distance was 500. My rate, which I know, is 150. And I do not know the time. We're trying to figure out the time. So this is where you're going to have to come up with those inverse operations, because I need to know 150 times what equals t. Well, the opposite of multiplication is division. So what that means is I can take my product, which is 500 in my problem, and I can divide it by 150, and that will get me my time. I'm using my inverse operations. So I know that 150 times 2 equals 300, and 150 times 4 equals 400. Times 3 equals 450. So that means that I'm going to have 3, and that's going to equal 450. And that means that I'm left with 50. I have a remainder of 50, so I'm going to have a fraction. So my whole number is 3, and then I'm going to put 50 over 100, which can be simplified. That's not in simplest form. Remember, we always want to write our fractions in simplest form. So I can divide both the top and the bottom by 50. And so that would move my fraction to be 1/2. Okay, so it would be 1/2, because 50 can go into 50 one time and 50 can go into 100 2 times. So don't pay attention to what that says, because that is not correct. So 3 1/2 is my time. So it takes the runner 3.5 hours or 3 hours and 30 minutes to complete the race. So let's go ahead and move on to example number 2. So example number 2 says, a race car driver traveled an average speed of 120 miles per hour. He finished the race in 2 hours. What is the length? So I'm looking for my distance. Okay, so I have my time and I have my rate, so I'm looking for my distance. So if I were to plug it into my formula, my rate is 120 miles per hour. My time is 2 hours. I want to know what is my distance. So all I have to do in this case is multiply 120 times 2. So that is going to be 240. So that was an easier example because you just had to multiply. You didn't have to use inverse operations. So let's do a couple more problems. So I'm going to do the odd problems because you're doing the evens. So for number 1, it says a cyclist travels 45 miles in 3 hours. So I want to make sure that I write my distance formula. So distance equals rate times time. So that's my distance formula. So I want to plug it in. So my distance, I know that they traveled 45 miles. I do not know my rate. I'm looking for my rate. And I know that they went for 3 hours. So that means I need to do my inverse operations. So I need to figure out 3 times what equals 45. So I can take 45 and I can divide it by 3. So I'm going to take 45 and divide it by 3. So 3 goes into 4 one time. And 4 minus 3 equals 1. Bring down my 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. Subtract and I get 0. So that means my rate equals 15 miles per hour. All right, guys, you can rewatch this video as much as you need and have fun with today's practice. Let me know if you have any questions.